Said the play money table here. So I was just thinking how theoretically it's not this, but I wonder what the true math is. 25% of the pots could be won theoretically pre-flop. 25% of the pots could be won on the flop. 25% of the pots could be won on the turn. 25% of the pots could be won on the river, making 100% of the pots for a baseline. But it's unlikely to be that because pre-flop, you're more likely to get lots of calls. Like there's 3 people in this pot, right? So pre-flop probably has the least winning percentage, where the river would have the most. So it'd be awesome for math, somebody that's good at math, to crunch the numbers based, like ideally poker stars would have enough information with their clientele to find out the likelihood, the percentage of hands that people win like pre-flop. Because then to know this information for me, like if I could Google search it, then I could be like, oh, okay, I know they're likely to call 25% of the time on the turn. So that's going to alter how I bluff, call, raise, right? I'd be able to use that information, utilize that information. Whereas other people, even if you told everybody, some people wouldn't utilize the information, right? Like in other apps, it's a disadvantage to a skilled player. Like for somebody like me, like you don't want it, but to the average person, you want it. Right? I want my opponents to have it, but I hate the fact that I have it because there are skilled, observant players that would be able to utilize it. But whenever you could tell somebody's ranking, like when there's a league ranking, then you could speculate on how good they are as a player, right? Like if they're like rookie or amateur, beginner basically, usually it's beginner or rookie, novice, some term like that, then amateur, then eventually pro, then elite or master, legend, world class. They're going to have champion. They're going to have different terms, right? But because there's basically beginner, intermediate, advanced, and then world class, like Hall of Fame. It's like if you're an athlete, your goal. Well, my son, for instance, he's not as passionate about soccer. Unfortunately, his talent should require him to be, because he'd be the best soccer player on the planet. And anyways, that being said, when he was a kid, I didn't buy him a pro hat. I'm a pro hat. I made him a hat that said Hall of Fame. It's like, you got to raise the bar, right? I'm going to fold because I'm going to end up losing this hand. Even though I feel like playing poker, and that seemed like a great opportunity. But I don't really have any experience against these players as far as I know, right? I very rarely read their names because I can't keep notes, right? And people hack my brain to forget names and faces, so if I was on a computer, I'd be keeping notes about opponents, every opponent basically. I would have a coded system where just letters that would tell what they're likely to do, different scenarios. Like here's like a full house, 4 of a kind scenario, right? So in a straight, so how do they play it, right? So ideally I would see this hand, and then if I'm not in the pod, I have the time to document, okay, this is exactly what they did in my coded system, right? I guess I wouldn't be, without voyeurism technology, I'd be able to do that, right? But since people spy on me, I wouldn't be able to overtly do it every hand, because then they would be able to crack my code, right? So I would have to be more strategic about it. When they're expecting the fastball, right, I'd throw the changeup. If you're a pitcher that's a super dynamite, can pitch every once in a while, maybe like depending on their sweet spot, right? If you how good they are as a batter, you can't do it with every batter, but if they're a strong, if say the cleanup hitter, you probably don't want to pitch too high in the strike zone. I'd be pitching low, in low, middle low, down low, outside low, couple strikes in the strike zone, a couple balls. Be throwing the balls unless I needed to be surgical, right? And then I would try to be surgical at that point. But I'd be juggling them basically, in, out, left, down, up, right, left, just making every opponent. Like if I was in the major leagues, I would, even in the off season, I'd be paying attention to trades and all that stuff, and watching game footage of how the best players, particularly the ones that are the best, right? How they do. Are they good at nighttime? Good during the day? Right? It's pretty much Moneyball, right? So they could break down the strike zone into 9 sections. So where's their weaknesses, right? And then juggle them based on it, right? It'd be a psychological chess match. I'd be a chess player if I was a pitcher. I'd try to get in their head psychologically. Try to learn about them, right? Their tendencies. What they're least successful at, I'd be challenging them the most, but not predictably. I'd be random about it. Where their strongest capabilities, I would challenge them the least, but not randomly. Sometimes in the biggest moment, I would challenge them. I'd challenge them if my catcher's saying down and in, and his sweet spot was up and away. Maybe I would take that chance and throw the hardest fastball I could possibly throw and try to get him, or change up, right? I would try to throw a slider, particularly slider. I would love to develop a slider as a pitcher. Would love to. Nothing, you could break somebody's, you watch how they swing, like they're pro athletes, and you make them look so awkward. There should be, in basketball, it's great because you can posterize them in basketball, but as a pitcher, if I was a kid that wanted to be a pitcher, I'd want to have a picture of a batter that he looks so friggin' awkward swinging. I'd want that perfect pitcher. It's like if I was a basketball player, I'd want the defensive player, I'd want that pitcher where the guy's sitting on his butt on the court because I broke his ankles by dribbling him. I guess I got to take the chance with this player. He's volatile, but if I fold a flush, what am I going to do, right? It was a sweat. I love strategy. Love it. I love war in video games and movies. Love it. There's nothing cooler than seeing 100 planes or a naval fleet or a brigade in a climatic battle for good versus evil. Right? The movie would be battle, or the games is the pivot, like the battles along the way that lead up to the decisive battle. Because when you're in a war, you always want the decisive battle that cripples, and then one side is always on the retreat, and then the end is inevitable, right? So you want that decisive battle. Like in World War II in the Pacific Theater, it was the Battle of Iwo Jima, I believe, was in 1942, basically. The Japanese were, up until 1942, in 1943, the Japanese were pretty much had the upper hand, right, because of the attack on Pearl Harbor. But then there was the decisive battle that put the Japanese on the back foot, basically. They were on the retreat. Instead of gaining territory, they began to lose territory. Or the Battle of Normandy, right? Once they gained the beachhead, it was over. If there was ever a war between North America and Asia, whoever gains the foothold in the other continent eventually wins. Because they're constantly, then they control the ocean, right? They control the ocean, so they're able to ship as many people non-stop, basically. Not necessarily, but it's an awfully good chance, right? Because psychologically, right, like at first they would be, maybe not so much now, like, because there's really no preparation for World War III, right? But if there were bunkers, and if the beaches didn't look like, if beaches looked like fortifications rather than resorts, right? So right now, the world is vulnerable to, hopefully it never happens, right? We should be civilized. And to me, war is barbaric because it's a failure of diplomacy, basically. It's two grown adults that can't get along and can't express themselves unless there's ethnic reasons, ethnic cleansing, or there's some persecution or what have you, right? But if it's a land grab, then you're invasive to me. So I don't like that as the world leader. That's not. But if you're able to recruit people, say for Russia, Ukraine, for instance, if Russia was like all the ethnic Russians in Ukraine, if they unilaterally said, yeah, I'd rather be Russian than Ukrainian, then not a problem whatsoever. Then the border changes. So in Canada, United States, in the future, if a certain percentage of Canadians were like, hey, I would rather be American, or Americans were like, I'd rather be Canadian, then the border would change peacefully. Like, the only way borders are going to change in the future is through diplomacy and peacefully. If people of a certain ethnicity, that's the only thing about immigration, right? Particularly in the Scandinavian countries, they're pretty small population-wise, right? So if the homozygous genes, or basically the majority gen, like right in Canada, would be say English Canadians mainly, or French Canadians, right? Maybe German, or it would be like that. But as we import particularly Asian people, whether they be Indians or Chinese, and they may, in 100 years from now, Canada ethnically could be a completely different. It wouldn't be European anymore, right? Mainly European. It's unlikely, right? Because it's likely to be a country, well, especially Canada, right? And in America, they want to be, particularly in America, right? They have that genius clause where if you're a genius, you could emigrate there, right? Which is good for them because they're a superpower, right? But it's not ideal strategically, it's not good for your country, right? If you're from country B and then all of a sudden you want to go to country A because it's better, you're weakening country B long term, because you're a good talent. You're a talent for country B, and then now you're making country A stronger, but you're weakening country B. So this goes on generational, right? The longer there's a superpower, right? They're gonna import talent, right? It would be Chinese. It would either be the Chinese Americans or the Indians. Basically, population-wise, is basically the future for mankind, or whatever country gets my evolutionary DNA, right? It doesn't matter at that point, right? But if I didn't have this evolutionary DNA, the future is basically either American, Chinese, or Indian, or the European Union, right? and then say the African Union or the Latin American Union, and you have to basically kind of group 1 billion people together to collectively trade and compete against China and India and America, right? Or Russia, right? Well, maybe not Russia so much since they're energy dependent, right? So for Russia's long-term strategy is they're great at computer hacking, unfortunately, which is maybe from a national interest, it's strategic, but the software skills that's translatable into to economic opportunities, like with viable businesses, right? I grew up in a neighborhood where I was very unlikely to graduate high school, a high probability to join a gang or become a criminal. I had a better chance at becoming a criminal than I had with a criminal record by my 19th birthday. Say I probably would have been, I did get in young offender trouble, but so by my 19th birthday, I would have been destined for crime if I would have followed the traditional route for my neighborhood. A certain percentage of people that I grew up with now, like a certain percentage of them are going to be dead, and a certain percentage of them are going to had spent a certain, maybe some time in jail, and then a certain percentage of them spent some time in prison. Every time. It'd be like that for every inner city neighborhood, not just mine. Low income, and back then, it was for me, like, I had role models in my family, right? I had either legacy stories, right? Like my grandfather on my dad's side grew up with servants. My dad grew up with servants, right? So, and I have nobility on both sides, right? So my parents look like the last 2 German emperors, and they were father and son. And then my aunt and uncle looked like Ludwig the First and his wife Teresa, and their brother and sister, right? So they've been stacking royal families through my family covertly for centuries. But that being said, with the superpowers of the world, it could be just because I'm advocating for, because to me, I have a soul tone. I have a soul tone, right? I can't wait to show the world that with technology, because then it makes people respect God, not fear God. God is never to be feared, only if you're evil, right? God gave you life, gave you existence, gave the possibility for life, right? God gave us everything, gave us our soul, which is immortal, whereas our body is a mortal shell. Up until my biology, they're telling me this, because they try to kill me lots of times, right? They wrote people with heart attacks from me, and I have no problems with my heart, and they never really want me to have a problem with my heart, because even though I took myself off the organ donation list, they would secretly harvest my organs because of my evolutionary DNA. So I would never, I don't know how, it all depends how much money I have at the time if I were to die, right? But I would have to, I would most likely be in an induced coma or sleep that simulates death, that you couldn't detect me breathing or my pulse, but it would be simulated. And then I'd be in some secret lab that would be exploited for the rest of existence. And it wouldn't be a rest of existence because the system's it's based on failure, right? There's this thing, I forget exactly what it was, but they're trying to change the rotation of the planet, right? And that changes everything. That changes life on Earth. That ends us, basically. That ends us. We might have oxygen to breathe, but biology to eat will change, right? Polar shifts and stuff like that. If we can mitigate it, if we could keep Earth exactly the fucking same as it is now, it would be ideal. Even without like, because eventually the continents are going to merge together and change over time, over millions of years, right? So if we could develop technology to allow the earth to kind of express itself, just to vent it enough, so we could build bridges, and then so over time our bridges don't because like the Bering Strait, right? Like, as soon as I'm an official world leader, right, there's going to be a bridge that with trains that could support enough weight, except for tanks. It won't be so Asia can't transport millions of tanks or thousands of tanks to North America, and North America can't transport thousands of tanks to Asia, right? But commerce-wise, it's ideal. It's something like 50 miles. You could drive from Asia to North America. So then there would be big city in Asia right after the bridge, big city in North America after the bridge. The tourist destination, right? The closest spot to North America, right? Or the best of the world in this or that, right? That's what I love about America. I'm Canadian, but I love a lot about America because they're superpower, right? They're good. I lived in a border city, right? So I learned at a young age the guys are going to be jealous, but the girls love us, right? Likewise, right? It's competition, guys. We're competitive, right? It would be the same if an American came to a Canadian bar or whatnot, right? They're going to be a foreigner, right? So they're going to be more desirable to Canadian women because they're going to have an accent. So a certain amount of Canadian women are going to find those men more attractive, even if they were identical twins with a Canadian man. It's like I went to Cuba, right? And I was interested in the Canadian women, but they went there for Cuban men. Right? But to me, it's like, ideally it would be, I meet a Canadian and then we develop a relationship that we could build back home in Canada. Right? But when I went to Cuba, it was kind of, I gave my ex-wife an ultimatum, and then I basically just went to Cuba by myself, right? And so there was sexual opportunities there, but psychologically I wasn't interested whatsoever. Even though physically I was, right? Like I was dancing with women and I wanted to, but I knew that I was unlikely that I would be able to achieve an erection because psychologically I still have my wife, right? I didn't grow, right, with any relationship. Because when you marry somebody, there's good and bad times, right? If it's all bad times, then it's a terrible relationship, right? But especially as the years go by, there's a lot of good times and very few bad times, right? You get through the points where, I remember when I first, like, ideally, if I could rewind time, it would be like, soon as my son was born, I would leave her and then gain custody of my kids, basically, and then raise them, and from that moment forward, right? But I can't, so I have to, the time that I did have to influence my kids daily, is priceless to me. And as I'm alive, right, if you're a parent, all you could do is, because you never know when death is going to call your number, right? So all you could do is try to influence your kids positively, or if you're a male, be a positive male role model to people in your life, to the young women and young men in your life, wholesomely. And if you're a woman, likewise, right? Like there's women in the future. There's going to be different roles. There's going to be women, older women, that are going to facilitate a motherly role for me, or an aunt role or a sister role. And then there's going to be women that have a romantic role, or maybe then a young role, like for maybe say like a niece or some sort of role like that, where random kid in the future, say 20 years from now, that just happened to inspire my curiosity. Just say with being kids, right? Kids are so curious, and they remind you of your childhood, right? Because you know, the awesomeness of your childhood. It's like the innocence of your childhood, at least mine, right? I kind of, the government made my home dysfunctional and it would not. So it was up to me to break these generational chains, right? Like these curses for my family, right? It was up to me. It was like, I was a passenger in the car, right? And it was a train wreck for a lot of it. But there was awesome times, right? My parents are awesome people, but I now know that they were manufactured, you know, and I was, as the curiosity as a kid thing, I remember asking my parents questions, and all the time it was like, you're too young for this. But so I changed that as a parent when I was older, right? If it wasn't sexual, then they were never too young for it. If it didn't involve drugs or sex, right? But then if they're curious enough to ask that question, like, why do dinosaurs do backflips or whatever this random thing might be, it'd be like, wow, okay, I may not know the answer, let's go find out. And then I'll read it real quick or whatnot, educate myself on it enough, and watch a YouTube video for kids. I would type in the search to get the most wholesome video. And what a game changer this. So what does he have? He can't bust me, right? So it's a risky situation because I could have been drawn dead there, but there was the potential flush draw, and you do get the loose flush draws calls. He likely would have called it on the river because he had top pair, and I may not have went all in. It all depends how I feel like playing that hand, right? Could have played it many different ways. It's like that hand particularly, just say there's the 3 colors, and then you could mix it a different way and then make new colors, right? That's what I love about the poker psychology of it. It's an art form, right? Bluffing is an art form, betting, and because it's like, do you want to call, do you want to raise, or do you want to fold? So if you have a drawing hand, it's like, okay, well, I want to call because I want to build the pot in case I hit my hand. Not all the time, predictably, but often enough, 80-90% of the time, randomly. It's not like, okay, well, for the last 26 times I did it, so the next 14 times I'm not, or whatever it would be, right? So I'm gonna call for 300 because it's so cheap, even though I have a bluff caller, right? It's not strategic, but maybe now I have a split pot depending on his bet. See, so he likely has a club, but to me he has a weak club, so I might be able to MacGyver a win here. And that's just situational poker based on my experience, right? My skill allowed me to, well, that time I didn't get lucky, but sometimes my skill allows me to get lucky where I hit a hand. Very rarely, with the amount of times that people bluff and hit their hands against me compared to the amount of times I bluff against people and never hit my hand against them, there's a huge discrepancy, right? And I'm off the charts with full, pattern recognition, right? That's how I figured out computer-assisted telepathy. And even before that, even just say computer-assisted telepathy didn't exist, I figured out that you could figure out what somebody's thinking just by listening to them breathing. Because when you breathe and read, we enunciate the words that we're reading as we breathe slightly. So with electronic instrumentation, you could record and disseminate verbatim with computer technology. So if it didn't exist, I would have helped my government create it, basically. 4 of a kind, nice hand. He didn't really get a big... When you're in that situation, like, unless you want the pride of showing the 4 of a kind, jam. You might get a loose call, and I'd rather not show the 4 of a kind and secretly know that I hit one and my opponents don't, so next time there could be a possible 4 of a kind. They could put me on that next time. I'd rather get the fold than with the potential getting the all-in, bust them, than get a cheap call sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. I guess the majority of the time I would have a 4 of a kind, because I tried trapping with a royal flush and it backfired. I won like $2. There was $2 on the flop. I made a flush with a royal flush redraw on the turn. I tried trapping, he didn't bite. I tried trapping on the river, he didn't bite. I made $2. Maybe if I bet, it could have been a super unlucky situation. Maybe I would have got nothing out of him. But I tried trapping, so I never know, right? So if I ever have a royal flush again, I'm not going to trap. I might bet on the river and get a fold all in, but I'm never going to trap. I'm going to try to maximize, double up. It just all depends, right? If you flop it, then you have 3 streets to engineer, depending on your position, right? To get the all in, to bust them. Like, I love tournaments, right? So bounty tournaments. So I'm always about the KO, right? If late registration's open in a non-bounty tournament, I'm not concerned with busting opponents. But in a bounty tournament, I'm trying to get my buy-in back. So if I'm in a $5 buy-in bounty tournament, I'm going to try to make at least $5 in bounties in case I bust, so I could re-enter in the tournament if I'm not satiated enough. Like, it's a fantastic word, satiated. Insatiable. Insatiable Chris, the manhandler to men and the dream poker dancer to women. So I'm going to alter my testosterone now when I say it. So for men, it's going to be the manhandler, and for women, it's going to be the poker dancer. So when I chemically in my brain, when I said the manhandler, I added testosterone to my brain, and when I said I'm the poker dancer, I added estrogen to my brain chemically, because I know where it is in my head, because they fuck with my brain, right? At one point, they made me forget, but if they didn't make me forget, I would have basically became a neurologist from the inside with how they're, like, I know where the main things are. I know where the immune system's controlled, adrenaline, strength, pain, and memory. The mucus, because they make me have to blow my nose a lot, so I know where the mucous membrane is controlled. I know how to tighten my skin and my face. I know how to reduce my age. I know how to prevent gray hair. But if they didn't mess with my brain, I would have known, say, maybe 45 other elements to the human brain that would have advanced science. I should have helped them cure cystic fibrosis like 5-6 years ago, but it turned out that they tried routing cystic fibrosis victims through me to make me suffer, basically. But basically, there's a spot on the brain. It's basically, I guess if you're a doctor, if the doctor should be able to figure this out, if I'm descriptive enough. If you're a doctor, so imagine your ear, an average size ear, top of the ear, maybe 1 centimeter up and 3/4 of an inch on a diagonal would be a centimeter section of the brain that controls lung function, basically. Here we go. What does he have? Is this the same guy? See, I wasn't paying attention, but I'm going to fold because there is the flush and 4 of kind and full house. Would like him to show the bluff. So anyways, if you're a doctor, right above the left ear in the brain is a section, right? So for them to, at the time they told me, so now on the flip side of the coin, your forehead, I guess I'll show you for the people that aren't doctors. So right here, basically in your brain is there's a pinpoint. I could pinpoint it in my brain with that technology. But right here is your immune system and your adrenal glands. So or right beside each other. It might be opposite of that, but right beside each other is the immune system and the adrenal gland. So if you go through the adrenal gland and then the immune system, and then to that point on the left side of the brain, you stop cystic fibrosis in people, right? So with nanotechnology, with my neuroplasticity, I could kind of create new highways in my brain, new neurons and whatnot. But with regular biology, it would require nanotechnology. But you could electronically create these signals for people, and to route until it naturally forms a link, right? Like until you form a trail, right? And then it becomes a path for the brain. So artificially with nanotechnology, creating this artificial path until the brain is like, okay, this is how it's done, right? But it prevents cystic fibrosis. Then kids don't suffer breathing. But as a consequence for me, they made it so I suffer. They're trying to diminish how much I could breathe out of the left side of my lungs, my left lung basically. They're trying to cause timelines that don't add up, like because I'm old enough to have been exposed to asbestos, but time-wise it doesn't. It takes about 20 years, and it was 8 years ago, motherfuckers. And it's so unlikely with my biology. Like I posted a video, and it shows me, I'm like, watch this, guys. I'm gonna hack some tar out of my lungs, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. And then I do it. And I in the video, I'm like, okay, it's this part of your brain, that part of your brain, this is what I'm doing. And then they developed technology that I can no longer do that skill. I was able to breathe out of one lung and not the other. And a stethoscope could easily have verified this. And they developed, I haven't tried it because they could develop technology to prevent my new techniques, right? So potentially in the future, I could easily prove it with a stethoscope, right? I would just uninstall the technology, and that's preventing me from doing it. And they have lungs, so I destroyed the lungs that are artificially connected to me. And any technology that's connected electronically to me to reduce my biology is either has to be refurbished so it enhances my biology, or it's obsolete in the future. But it's technology, right? So it could always become a newer, better technology. And with people, the same thing is you could always have kids, and your kids don't have to be evil, right? If you make them evil, then they're a threat to me in the system. I was never looked for an enemy in my life, but when I was born with enemies. I'm a life mark, a life target. They've been targeting my family for centuries. They've been holding us at points, right? My grandfather, on one hand, right, had servants, and he had a professional baseball contract opportunity, right, that he turned down. So we were allowed to achieve good things, but his wife was kind of impoverished in a different. My grandfather's parents probably didn't like my grandmother too much because she was poor, right? And not social economically, right? The last thing, especially if you have a daughter, right? The last thing you want, if you have a rich daughter, the last thing you want her to do is to meet a poor son-in-law, right? The last thing I would want is a poor son-in-law. Unless he had talent and ambition. If he had talent and ambition, and my daughter's able to be the queen and her king, right? And they're a team and they build an empire, all the more power to it. Because in the future, like ideally my 2 kids right now, they're gonna be free will kids and they're gonna meet whoever they want. But in the future, I'm gonna have kids specifically for countries, right? And to build networks and allegiances and ideally power bases, right? For each country. And it's basically going to be whatever the major ethnicity of the country is going to be the first. So, say for European, if in a European country, whatever it is, say in Germany, whatever the major ethnicity in Germany is, there's going to be probably like a bachelor show or something like that, where there's going to be contestants that are ideally somebody like Madame Curie, which is if you're a woman, there's beauty without technology. Beauty fades with age, most likely, right? I wish I knew her name, but there is this Centurion woman. She lived to be 100 years old. Duckworth, let's see. Centurion. But you could tell, let's see, this is her right here. You could tell that she was a beautiful woman her entire life. She's a century years old, 100 years old in this picture, but you could tell that she was a beautiful woman at 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, all the way up. You could tell that she was beautiful every stage in the process, right? But if you're a woman, she was the rare occurrence, right? There's very few people. You see it in Hollywood, right? With actors, and right, some are beautiful over like decades, right? And then some, their beauty fades, right? So there's there's the pro level players and there's the Hall of Fame players, right? So beauty's most likely to fade, but your brain doesn't fade as fast. So if you're a woman, you want to be Madame Curie. Mary Curie. You want to read up on this woman because Mary Curie, she was a dual Nobel laureate. I don't feel like reading it, so Korea. Mary Korea. Okay, anyways, I don't feel like saying it again. They're trying to skew my Google searches because at one point I might subpoena Google, and because electronic violators, I'm going to be able to see people that Google search them simultaneously if I say things like humanality, and then whoever Google searches it at the same time as I do, or shortly afterwards, before it's publicly known, before I post the video, then it's going to be suspicious, right? Especially a word I created like humanality. So any of these people that are right now looking up Mary Curie, that are listening to my thoughts, there's going to be a metadata trail, basically. No. I guess I'll say it again.
According to Wikipedia, Marie won the 1911 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for her discovery of the elements polonium and radium, using techniques she invented for isolating radioactive isotopes.
Okay, that's all it says. But she was a dual Nobel laureate. Why did she win? So she won two. One with her husband and then one basically by herself. But if you're a woman, you want to be her, basically. You want to be known for your brains, not your beauty. Because it's going to be hard to be timeless just being beautiful. When physical perfection's a 10, right? But to become timeless as an individual, right, you have to be monumental at the time. So I don't think duty is always that criteria, and most women aren't a 10. Most women are likely, you could become smarter over time, right? If you keep educating yourself, you're going to be smarter. You're going to be better at trivia games and things like that, Jeopardy. And so it didn't show up the money yet, so I'm not in exact hurry to join, but let's see. Did it show up now? So it's saying current balance, even though I didn't lose. So I'm just going to pause the video. So it's still not, well, I guess I'll play a different table for a second. I can't wait to have, to become world leader, because one of the first things I want to do is make sports and entertainment wholesome, and media transparent, and but other than that, when you loosen up the collar kind of things, like to make gambling square, like spending a lot of money to stop cheats, ban cheats. And so for me, I want to be able to play poker, right? Even though I'm going to be very rich and say the owner of the company, I would even, more than likely, it all depends what people want, right? Because I'm going to be the guy that's trying to privatize your thoughts, right? So I should be the most trusted individual ever, right? Because as king of the world, why would I want you to know that I could hear your thoughts if I had any nefarious intent, right? It would be much easier for me to never mention that in my videos, and just to try to develop as a poker player and not scare away sponsors, right? Strategically. But I make these videos because over time, in years from now, people are going to stumble across them and probably watch every one because they're solid videos, especially as I progress, right? Particularly, say, MeyerDiggins Poker 50 and on, because after then, it's all feedback, right? You get feedback from people, and very little, but you get feedback from people, so I can't really reveal too much because I'm trying to get sponsorships, and it could prevent me from winning millions, right? So at the time, all I could reveal is likely scenarios without getting into specifics. But so the first 50 videos, you just see solid poker play, right? But then after 50, I start talking more in my videos. I start explaining poker psychology, basically. I wanted a razor, but so he has more chips than me, so I'm pretty much gonna try to let him get comfortable bluffing me, and then punch him in the mouth, basically, with a hand. Unless the situation develops like then. Just in case he's listening. I guess I can't think of anything because it's crazy. I tried posting a video on YouTube, and it was all my content, and they're like, copyright. Everything about it was me. is my Facebook, my YouTube, my Instagram. How big is this bet gonna be? 1,000. That was slightly an information goal. It's a little reckless how short my stack was, but you never know, right? My biggest play money comeback that I could, this isn't really a comeback, but I was in a, say, I sat down with some like 15,000 chips or whatever it was, and he might have had, say, 25,000 chips. And I made this crazy bluff for like, I had 1,750 chips after this bluff. And they called and won. So I was crippled. So he had 35,000 chips. So what would that be? $1,750 divided by 35,000. Wrong way. 35,000 divided by 1,750. 20 times. So I was a 20-to-1 underdog and I came back. For play money. I don't know. Nothing is close to that. But with real money, I did, yeah, I believe it was a 9-handed table. And I had ace king the very first hand, or the very second hand, before I invested any money. It must have been the second hand, because it left me with 20 chips. So I didn't play the first hand. And I went all in, or he went all in, and I lost. I had 20 chips left, and I came back and won the table from 20 chips left. I had to get lucky 3 times, and then I just dominated after that. And I was nowhere near as good as I am now. Nowhere near as good. I'd be a hard opponent to beat because I did come first out of 8,000 back then. But in a heads-up game, I would pick myself apart over time, right? I was kind of easy to bluff because I was so strict as a player. So that made me vulnerable, right? Like, Ace 10 was disgusting to me. People that played Ace 10 were weak. It's like as if he didn't have. This guy busted me with Ace 9, and I thought he was the weakest player that I've ever played against. When I had Ace King, it was like as if he called all of his chips with Ace 9 and expected to win. But luck favors stupidity sometimes. Because really, in that scenario, you never, unless you know the guy's bluffing, or your instinct is telling you that this is the winning hand. Because sometimes your instinct's right? Only those 2 scenarios, you have to assume if you call with the Ace 9 or anything below that, Ace 2 through 9, that you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose. Even Ace 10, even Ace Queen. You call with the Ace Queen. You have to assume that you're going to lose a certain percentage of the time. Ace King, a certain percentage of the time you're going to lose. Every hand. Unless you have the royal flush. A certain percentage of the time you're going to lose. It'd be terrible, but I think I'm good enough that if the money was big enough, I would fill a straight flush. And if the guy had the royal flush and he made me dance like he had the royal flush, and or I made him dance that I had the straight flush and he made me dance that he had the royal flush, then I'd possibly fold the straight flush. Because I did put a guy on a straight flush within the last month in one of my videos, just to try to get sponsorships, endorsements, and donations, right? So I had the ace high flush, and I put him on the king of clubs, and he could add the king of clubs, the nine of clubs, any under flush, nothing at all, two pair, a set, something strong though. He indicated that he had something strong based on his hand. But to me, it was like, I'm such an experienced poker player. To me, all I seen was a big red stop sign. Big red stop sign saying, hey, you're beat, your trap was I only allowed you to trap me, basically, was the bet. Which is the best hand in poker, right? It's the most disappointing, but there's nothing better when the guy flips over a card and he's so confident that he has the winning hand and you bust him. It sucks when it happens to you, but it's just part of the game, right? See, that was a pot that it was likely I could extract any more money than that out of the pot, right? So that's the unfortunate thing about luck is if I would have made a 1,200 bet, he likely would have folded. I would have got nothing, right? So I got probably the maximum I could have out of the pot. I'll just see what I speculate. So 4-8. So he had an 8. So I might have got a 1,200 bet out of him. But unlikely an all-in, right? And I had the second nut basically in that scenario, so it could have been a situation where I could have doubled up through him if I knew it was going to hit, right? If my instinct was telling me it was going to hit, I would have been playing the hand differently because I would have been confident that it was going to come, because luck sometimes treated us that way. Am I going to make a play? See, this bet is either, it all depends, right? How many chips you have, right? But this bet, I'm going to call on, I guess I don't have enough time to explain. But this bet is saying weakness, and you could steal the pot from me. But I didn't have enough chips. I didn't want to risk it that time. But if I had 20,000 chips and he had 5,000, I would have busted him. I would have jammed at that point. Because that bet is saying, I'm so weak, come jump all over me and steal this pot away from me, to me as a poker player. But some players that trap, that it's a good trap, right, sometimes. But as it shows, I don't always take the bait, right? Because it's one of my weaknesses is trapping, right, with people. It's any poker player's weakness is trapping, right? It's kind of hard to outwit the trap. He hit the street. But that being said, the more you experience this situation, the less likely you are to get burnt by that situation. If not, you don't grow as a player. Right, and with these people that cheat, it's so hopefully I have a fortuitous. Hopefully the river is everything. I have to call because there's a river to come. If there was no river to come, I would easily fold. Does it pair? sometimes you get a smash, a home run like that. Even good players get lucky. That was a pretty good trap. If you want to learn how to trap people, that's one way to do it. So he could be aggressive now, but like maybe I offended him, right? People are pretty finkle like that. It all depends, right? Hopefully I could show him a bluff now. Hopefully the situation presents itself. Let's see. Let's see what my odds are to win. I should be a favorite. So now the momentum's in my court. Oh, see, left. That's how you break somebody's will. Here comes the next contestant. Hopefully. I'm just gonna pause. Let's see how long it takes. If it takes a little while, I'm gonna leave the table and I'll join a higher level heads up. I'll make this the next half hour heads up or bust too. So it doesn't look like anybody's gonna join, so I'll leave the game. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe somebody will join. Saying R for reserved, I assume. All you could do in poker is try to figure out people's strategy and then try to come up with a strategy, figure out their weaknesses and use it against them, right? Okay, so nobody's coming. That sucks. A whole minute. That's the thing about making it an Ontario app. It sucks so much, right? I want to compete against the world. There's almost 8 billion of us, right? So in the future, hopefully every adult at least has played Texas Hold'em at one point in their life. I love the game that much because it's skill and chance. And the better you get, the sharper your educated guesses get, right? So the more profitable you become. If you watch every one of my videos, you should become a better poker player. So 6 max, head max, let's see. Oh, I have to open up a new table by myself, most likely. Okay, I have enough, so I could jump up in stakes for heads up, possibly. Why is there only 6 heads up? Heads up. Okay, here we go. Got a lot thrown off. I wasn't looking at the right spot. So I'll go in as the underdog. Ideally, hopefully he has 162K. Hopefully I could take it all from him. Or her. From Muzzy. What's his tempo? With that many chips, he might be very aggressive. I assume he's a fairly good player, right? Because maximum buy-in was typical buy-in, say 50K, so he tripled up. So he won at least twice, right? Unless he could have won against one opponent, but he most likely won 2 heads-up battles so far, and I'd be his 3rd in a row. That's one thing I wish PokerStars Ontario did, would be a heads-up tournament. That would be awesome. A heads-up bounty tournament. It would be nice, since I'm mainly a $2, $3, $5, $10, $20, $30 player. But given a bankroll, I'd play as high as they had, basically. You know, because heads up, especially if after a while you're gonna know their tendencies, right? So, and it would suck that it's only in Ontario. It'd be nice if it was against the whole world, because then then there's world class, right? In playing against Ontario, it's like Ontario class, not even Canada class, right? It's Ontario class, right? But when you compete against the world, it's world class, and it's not even quite world class in the world anyways, because the Americans aren't playing poker as much, and the Chinese and the Indians, right? Once a billion Indians and a billion Chinese are playing Texas Hold'em, and 350 million Americans are playing poker, then in all these populated countries, once they're playing, then it becomes world class, right? It'd be awesome to play in maybe over, say, every Sunday for a month, or every weekend for a month, where a big tournament, say, in the future, when it's not rigged, right? When it's not rigged, when there's basically an independent review that's checking the servers, making sure there's no computer programming that's modifying the software to enhance odds, and where it's completely transparent and forensically audited at any point in time. They could show up at 3 in the morning, 3:23 in the morning one day, 6:26 p.m. the next day, or a following year from now. At any point in time, it's going to be that transparent, because that's how much I want gambling in the lottery to be. I want it to be real. I want real luck, and that's about it. Real luck, and for poker, skill, right? So the slots are probably rigged. So in the future, I'm going to try to develop a slot game for slot players that's skill. So at first, it's like poker, right? To become a professional poker player, like, unless you're lucky or cheating, you could do it. Don't get me wrong. You could be 18 years old and be, say, a pro poker player by 19. You could do it. You could do it easily. Easily, it's possible, right? But the most likely scenario is you have to expect that you're going to invest several $1,000s over the next several years to develop as a poker player. At least several $1,000s, right? Because your ace king or aces is going to bust you when you dominated for 4 hours and you have $1,600. You started out with $200, and this other guy has $1,800 and he busts you. Right? It's a brutal profession, because all your hard work could be taken away in one hand, right? That they say you can't like poker, you have to love it, because it's going to disappoint you, right? You could be the best tournament poker player in the world, and you're not going to finish in the money every tournament. Whereas if you're the best athlete in the world, you're going to be in a lot more tournaments, right? Especially if you're the best in the world, you should elevate your team. They build a whole team around you. You're a generational player. They spend years to develop talent to make you shine, basically. And so you have to rise up to the occasion. Like Connor McDavid's a cheat, but he was one of these people that they propped up, and he choked in the Stanley Cup Finals Game 7. It's fucking awesome, because he's a cheat. I'm glad he didn't get glory. I'm glad he didn't get to lift the cup and get the champagne moment and get the glory, right? The biggest moment of his life as a player, he choked. And it's awesome. It's fucking awesome. I could feel, and I'm going to be able to prove, at the time, I was riding my bike, but I could feel that they were trying to leech leg strength from my legs. Because I could feel my left leg might have energy, but all of a sudden my right leg didn't have energy. Because of the switch, right? And people hack different parts. So even if they did my right and left leg, it might be my right ankle I'm going to notice doesn't, and my left knee does. I'm going to notice something because I know my biology. That being said, if you go to the doctors, if you don't like their opinion, get a second opinion. Especially if you're in Canada in the future, right? We have a public healthcare system, but there's going to be an element of private healthcare. Like, for instance, when you go to the hospital, you're going to be able to fast track if you cover your medical, if you cover the nurse's fees, the doctor's fees, everything. If you cover the expenses that's required to fast track you, then you get, because if everybody's there for the flu, if you're there on public health care, you're gonna, in the future, you're gonna wait a little bit longer because people are gonna be like, I'm gonna pay the $300 to save myself 4 hours, right? So in a public healthcare system, there's gonna be that, but at the same time, you can't make the public healthcare people wait. So it might be, if you wait, 3 private healthcare people could go in front of you, but then you're number 4 or a certain amount, right? So that you can't wait an extraordinary amount of time. But because for some trivial things, like for instance, granted, when you're a first-time parent, your baby gets a fever, you're scared to hell, right? You're the scariest moment in your life, most likely, because your precious little baby could die, right? So, but that being said, your second or third baby, once they get the same type of flu or fever, you don't just run to the hospital in a public healthcare system, right? You let the fever break. You give it a couple days, you give them medicine and baby Tylenol or whatnot, and you let the fever, give the fever a chance to break, right? But let's see, do they have the A's, basically? But you give the fever a chance to break. And when you get a fever, you get hot and cold. So you would want a damp cloth for their forehead, right? Constantly having a damp cloth on their head to cool down their brain, their precious brain, right? And then try to gauge whether or not, if they're too hot, then you take the blankets off. And then when they get the chills, you put the blankets on, right? They're your baby. You want to do whatever you can to make them survive. But that being said, like in a hybrid system where there's going to be the element of the public and private healthcare system, like for cosmetic things will be private, right? If you want to augment your body, then there's going to be science and technology that allows you to do this, but it's going to cost you money, right? Because you want to be special. Maybe not special. If it's something to be ordinary, like cleft palates and stuff like that, that's probably going to be pro bono covered for, because, and to some extent, like probably subsidized braces for people. So rich people, billionaires, their kids are gonna, it might cost $100,000 for a rich kid to get braces, so they pay for 20,000 poor kids to get braces, right? So it'll be a percentage of their income or whatnot. It'd be fair, so it costs everybody basically the same, proportionally, because everybody wants a beautiful smile. There's not a single person on the planet that's a logical person. There's going to be people that, I say this, that are going to be contrary to it, but most logical people want a beautiful smile. You could tell if somebody's insecure by their smile if they don't show their teeth. If they show, it's natural to smile and show your teeth. So if somebody's insecure about their smile, they don't show their teeth in lots of their pictures. So they most likely need braces. But that being said, sometimes at 7, 8 years old, when, I don't know exactly now, but like for instance with my stepson, I was too young at the time, but his teeth would have been a lot better if I was more confident as a person. Because looking at his teeth, it's like, hey, if you remove this tooth and that tooth, you don't need braces in the future. To me, logically, that's what it looked like. So I should have been more confident and went to the dentist and be like, okay, I appreciate your opinion, but I'm the paying customer and this is what I want done. So for $500, I could have saved $4,000 basically. So each kid, look at the scenario. Like if your kid's teeth look like they're going to be like shark teeth, different rows, then strategically pulling one tooth out may be advantageous, right? Because luckily for me, I lost a tooth, so it created enough space to give my top row a pretty beautiful smile. Where I might have had overcrowding. So it was kind of fortuitous balance. But foolishly enough, as a kid, I seen how they tied a string around the doorknob and slammed the door shut to make a tooth fall out, and I tried it when my tooth didn't need to fall out. So it bent my tooth. It made one of my teeth crooked, slightly crooked. So there was most likely electronic violators that encouraged me to do it, and either suggested the thought and helped participate in it, or participated against my will, right? When I take a shower, when I'm putting soap all over my body, other people are able to simulate their hands and feel me putting soap on my body. Who wants that, right? In the future, I'm going to be the king of the world. I'm probably going to have a shower girl. But at the same, because I'm basically have to be the prize bull, right? Where I need to impregnate in a lot of women, right? So I'm not going to be able to have a typical relationship, because I wouldn't want to have sex with these random women for mankind's sake, for my wife's sake, basically. I would basically retire doing it, but from an evolutionary perspective, I really can't do that, right? So it'd probably be hundreds, if not thousands of years before I could have an authentic relationship. And I'm fine with that. Like, I was married once, and I told myself I'm only getting married once, right? And I'd probably change my mind in the future, because I got married because my daughter was like, why aren't you married to mom? So next thing you know, I got married, right? I was with her for enough years and loved her, and we got through, I think I mentioned it in the beginning of this video or the last video. But at one point in my relationship, I was secretly keeping track on a calendar how often we fought. And it was like, if we fought every day for 90 days, I was going to basically leave. And then we didn't fight as much, right? We kind of grew, because in a way, it's like, if you just get to know somebody, you don't want to pick a fight, but at the same time, you want to see how they kind of argue. Almost even before you really get feelings for them, right? You want to understand, because everything, when it's a clear blue sky, everything's perfect, right? But when there's a little bit of rain, then true colors come out, right? So like, if I do the Bachelor show thing, there's going to be some questionnaire where it's going to be, just say they really like something without offending them completely, but just to irk them slightly. One of the questions is going to be like, so you love rainbows, but what if the rainbow was like this? And then take them out of their comfort zone. And if they're like, no, rainbows have to be like that, then you can't communicate with them, right? So they would immediately fail the test, basically. Like, ideally, I was advocating for a bunch of people, and there was this one woman, she was like, well, how can we deal with this? How can we tackle this computer-assisted telepathy, right? So at that point, that was the perfect answer for her to say, was like, how could we take on this problem, Christian, together, right? So for me, it was like, the opportunity to build a relationship began right then, right? And it was most likely a CIA or CSIS undercover agent trying to gain my trust, right? If I was a spy, that's what I would have done, right? Here we go. Let's see. It's going to be a river decision because I get river lots. And I would rather be playing money poker because even though until you cash out, I treat it as play money. Because it's not life-changing, right? If it was life-changing amount of money, then it would be different psychologically. Like, I love playing in $10 tournaments and stuff like that. But, like, I did win a $10 tournament. There was 111 players, and I won a couple $100, right? But, in the 50K bounty tournament, there's 1,500 players, and I'd be more impressed winning the 50K bounty tournament being first out of 1,500 players than being first out of 111. That being said, I'd rather win a $10 tournament. Like if poker was worldwide, a $10 tournament on PokerStars would, first place could be thousands of dollars, right? And then you play more. If you ever, strategy-wise, right, don't try to, it's almost like monkey bars, right? You want to get to the next bar, and then the next bar, and the next bar, right? To the highest level till you reach the pinnacle, right? But you got to do it strategically. You don't want to overcommit yourself, right? So you want to build a bankroll strategically and approach the next level table, assuming you're going to lose at first, because you're not going to understand the dynamics of that table, right? Like, what's a suitable bet, right? Like, because you could get pocket aces, you make this bet, you're thinking you're receiving gravy, you're thinking you're double, tripling up, and next thing you know, everybody fools because you bet it wrong. Because you didn't get experience at that table, and they seen you as a fish, right? It's like, hey, this is how you doing, right? So everybody's like, not today. But so as you get more experienced at that table, you learn how to, okay, they think I have aces, but really I'm holding 310. So it's all psychology, right? But at first you don't understand the dynamics of the game. And everybody's different. Everybody has a different perspective about poker. The rules are the same, but everybody's unique experiences in life make them a different poker player. Some people love risk, some people hate risk. I guess most people that play poker like a little bit of risk. If they didn't like risk, they would be playing solitary or solitaire. They would be playing maybe mahjong, Sudoku, crossword puzzles. If they didn't like slots, well, I guess slots is, if you play slots, you like risk a little bit, and sounds, right? They get you with the sounds, and in the future, because the thing about slots is you always have to max bet it, right, to hit the maximum jackpot. So that's in the future that won't be the case. It'll be random, right? Like whether you feel lucky, and so people could play choice, because sometimes you want to play the rhythm of the machine, and so it might be single line, then the medium bet, then max line, right, for the next 3 bets, or single max, right, whatever you feel like doing. And your luck shouldn't, well, in the future, it's going to be a skill-based game slightly with the lights and sounds, easy enough to learn, but ideally, where you could win money, some people they're going to be naturals at it, and they're going to be profitable players right away. But most players, it's going to take several years for them to become a profitable player consistently. Luck will allow them to be winners if they randomly play, like slots, like where there's random luck, right? Not random luck, but beginner's luck. It's going to be a skill slot game where there's where there's skill with a little bit of chance, right? So the house can make money. There has to be a little bit of chance so the house can make money. And then if too many people become profitable, then transparently it's going to be known to the world, okay, we have to adjust the odds slightly because our game is too beatable for too many people, right? Because it needs to be a skill game where beginner's luck is sure that allows you to win a couple hands, right? But beginner's luck should never allow you to win a tournament. Say a tournament with 1,000 players. Beginner's luck should never allow you, like, it could happen. People could be that lucky. It's like winning the lottery probably like 3 times in a row to play, especially in a real life tournament where you have to play for days on end. That's getting lucky every single time. Beginner's luck and luck holding up. Your hand holding up every single time. Right? The odds must be astronomical. So with the slots, it'd be 8-10. He always seems to have it. With the slots, because I love that idea, right? Because even though I'm going to end up owning all the casinos and all that stuff, I want people to win. I want people to win some of my money. I want people to win. I don't need 100%. I can't eat the whole pizza, right? I'm going to be giving away slices. I just need to keep enough of the pizza for me, my kids, and future kids. And future grandkids. I'm probably going to just up to grandkids and then say my grandkids' kids. Then it's up to them to try to achieve generational greatness themselves. Because I'm hoping to have a couple Playboy sons and daughters that just want to, like, maybe a philanthropist daughter that just wants to either be a socialite but a volunteer that has a passion that I could just give her a whole bunch of money and she could just crusade and advocate for it, right? And eradicate it. And I would love to for my son to be have sons that are self-sufficient, but to create enough free time for in their day and their lives that they want to. Right, to look at the clouds or the weather network and be like, okay, I don't like the cloud formation. I'm gonna hop on my private plane and change the fucking weather. Because you got property in another country or another part in that country. I'm gonna call just to see, but I'm not winning anything. He has the queen, no, the king. I gotta try to manufacture some RBIs here, if you're a baseball fan. Hit the 6. What did he have? 6-4, so we called the raised pre-flop with 6-4. I wonder if he heard me say I want to manufacture RBIs this hand. 6-4. Then folds to a small bet. Well, pot-sized bet, but small enough bet. Let's see if I can recover, though. What is this? So 8 divided. So that's almost 8-1. He has every one chip I have, he has 8 chips almost. So can I rally back from an 8-1 underdog? That is the challenge. So he bluffs small. It's so unlikely that it has any of this, but I'm gonna fold. I do want a high card, call it, but if I had more chances or more money, more chips, I would have made the high card call. But it would have left me with like 3,000 chips, and the blinds are 500, right? So. Doesn't raise too much pre-flop. And I'm hitting nothing. Absolutely zero. 3 hands in a row, I didn't even pair. Absolutely zero. I'm hoping he had aces that hand. I knew I was going to bet miss, that's why I didn't even bet. So that's a small enough bet, so I'm going to just call it just to see I could win with high guard. Da-na-na-na-na-na. He's likely to bet. So what's this? This is 60, 62, 60 divided by 28. So what? So say 3,000, 62,000 divided by 3,000. So that would be 20, almost 21. Well, I pretty much have to go with it. It was whether or not he had the queen, right? So that kind of sucked for the comeback. Well, I guess I'm still an underdog. I'm always hitting my undercard. I've yet to hit the highest card that I've been holding. All you have to do is go back to the beginning of this heads-up battle, and I've yet to hit the ace. I've hit the 3. And correctly, he's folded every single time I've been holding. So most likely a cheat. imagine cheating for play money, though. I couldn't imagine cheating for play money. See this? Here I am right here. But see that right here? Clouds didn't used to look like this. I don't remember seeing clouds like that as a kid. It's the chemtrails in geoengineering. Subliminal images of the clouds, basically. And to change weather formations. Like, I'm going to be able to prove I have a video, but I should be able to find it from the Weather Network. But where I was hitchhiking, and you could see how the pressure system changed, and the cloud formation took a curveball towards the city. That when I was about to hitchhike, and I was pinned down for a day by the rain. Pinned down. And then I'm like, okay, with this technology, you could divert a hurricane. And then one of my videos under Chris MeyerDiggins, if you Google search Hurricane Dorian's most unlikely path, Chris MeyerDiggins, watch that video, and it shows basically Hurricane Dorian devastating the Bahamas, heading directly for Florida, and then it takes a curveball all along the coast. So they diverted the hurricane from hitting Florida and devastating Florida. Right, but since then they've allowed hurricanes to hit America, right? And I don't know about you, if I was the American government, I'd be letting the Russians and the Chinese know that I have a weather machine. That would be pretty much it, right? If you could send a tsunami, avalanche, blizzard, tornado, earthquake, a weather machine, right? You kind of control it all. You could have a cloud formation, and then right when you're about to attack, you could have the clouds disperse, and then see. So their sights and gun reticles are illuminate under the sun's. So it reflects, right? So you could see, oh, there's glass where there shouldn't be glass. So you're going to catch glimpses of like a sniper, right? They must have technology to prevent like their scope from being seen, because if I was in a war zone scenario, all I'd be looking for is glass. Places where people could strategically, windows that are open, that have vantage points. That's why whenever they have a presidential motorcade or whatnot, you can't have your windows open and stuff, right? So I just thought of a scenario, but I'll never say it. So people that are aware of my thoughts would be aware of it. So they'd be perceived threats, and they would have to be neutralized. The threat would have to be neutralized. So whatever that means to certain people. Judiciously. Ideally. When possible. Because it's not always possible, right? It's most bureaucratic processes are such a long, drawn-out process where decisions are made probably within minutes. Like, when the leaders, when they spend 10, 15 minutes together, decisions are probably made, even though there's the bureaucratic jumping through hoops, the formalities, shaking hands, and posturing. Like there's strategy, right? When you shake a hand, who pulls them in towards each other, right? The stronger, more masculine guy is going to have a more aggressive handshake, and he's going to pull and try to dominate the other guy's handshake, because there's a strategy to it, right? And then there's a strategy to who sits in a certain seat in the picture. There's all strategy. more dominant person's going to sit, I don't know what it is, but is either going to sit on the left side or the right side of the pitcher. And I understand this just from my rare observations that I make watching TV. And I haven't watched news in like, real news, probably, I used to watch it pretty CNN daily, and it would have been Canadian news, but unfortunately Canada isn't a superpower, right? So America is, and so they're a more dynamic country, right? So they're involved in more international affairs, so they're more dynamic, and whereas Canada, it's in one way, we don't fuck with people, right? So we're pretty good. I'm not saying that Americans fuck with people, but at the same time, they're an arsenal for democracy, right? I'm not even American, and that spoke to me when a president said that, right? But not quite democracy. For me, it's social republics. Like, I'm going to be an arsenal for social republics. Protecting the herd, but allowing the strongest of the herd to thrive the most. That's where the failure in communism is. Everybody's treated equal. The most talented people are treated just the same as like the lazy guy. There's this one guy, his name is Dan, and I had a construction job, and I called him Bucket Dan. He wanted to sit down on the bucket, so I did the whole day's work by myself. And in my mind, it's like my day went by faster. I gotta go home and do what I want to do. Your day took fucking forever because hours tick by slowly because you're so fucking lazy. So I called him Bucket Dan. And then there's Power Trip Bobby, right? Like this guy that I trained him on a job, and then 2 weeks later he's telling me how to do it. So the power went to his head. See, the thing is, my dad was kind of an independent biker. He wasn't affiliated with anybody, but he loved motorcycles. He didn't have, I don't remember him having any in my life, but prior to me being born, right, he had motorcycles, and he was kind of like an independent biker, right? So that rebelliousness, mysterious thing spoke to me, right? As a man, right? That being an independent, a rebel, standing up against the grain when it's going against the grain when it's justified, right? When it's a noble cause. Walk tall. So I could be the shield for people that believe they have private thoughts because they can't kill me. They need me, right? So you could rally behind me and help liberate your mind, protect your body, right? If you're a man, I want to protect your body as much as a woman, right? Because both men and women are being violated by members of the opposite sex and members of the same sex with this technology. Like, they have technology that could feel what somebody feels like in another person's skin. It's like, that's so scary when it's not publicly known and we can't defend ourselves against it. In the future, there's going to be a market for it. A certain percentage of people are going to like that. But once people have a voluntary choice, is my problem. That's where I have a problem with it, is people don't voluntarily have a choice. But in the future, I can't really tell you what the future is, because some of it's going to be my intellectual property that I'm going to capitalize on, right? But basically, you're going to have instant recall in life. But there's going to be other features, right? It's almost going to be like you're going to have a computer in your head, but there's going to be unique apps that I'm going to offer that my competitors won't. And since I'm instrumental for AI and going to be the world leader, right, it's going to be hard to compete with me as a company. because I'm going to be able to speak to billions of people all the time, right? Every day there could be possibly 1 billion people tuning in to listen to my thoughts for an hour or two, answering questions, right? 1 billion people. So I'd be developing businesses, network in person in country A and country B and C, and then developing and refurbish it in country E, and then we sell it to the rest of the world, right? And then I would kind of get a network fee, so to speak, and try to create almost like a spider web. I want businesses to be like a spider web, so interconnected, especially if they hate each other. If country A hates country B, I'm going to make it so you people have to work with each other the most, so you love each other after time, right? So your economies are so interdependent on each other that war isn't profitable. It costs too much. Because war, being the world leader, war is the last thing I want, right? It's a loss of manpower and resources. It's two things that are strategically, like with Russia invading Ukraine, they lost 2 different ways. Not only are they losing the manpower in the war, but they're losing the intellectual property of, or the intelligence, the brain drain of all these professionals that fled Russia to go to other countries that weren't in the war, so they wouldn't be drafted. So they lost out on young manpower, like vulnerable 18-year-old men that believe the ideology of the country, right? And being the world leader, I'm going to have a newspaper called Vantage Point, basically. But it'll be like that in a lot of language. But so if there's a problem, just say from North America and the Middle East, there's going to be journalists from North America in the Middle East explaining their perspectives of the same situation. So you get both sides of the story, and then you're able to try to see what the truth is through the mud, right? The way it is now is countries have even allies, right? They have ulterior motives for their own country, right? It's understandable, right? You're going to look out for your own family first, right? But being the world leader, I'm looking out for mankind first rather than each individual country. So there's going to be more transparency in media and truth, because it's supposed to be the information age, but really it should be the misinformation age, because it's so skewed. The truth is so skewed, which is unfortunate. I guess this will be the end of this video, and I'm going to continue playing Play Money. So if you want to keep watching me, just watch the following video. Thanks for watching. If you believe you got private thoughts, go to www.change.org/technology, sign the petition, make it go viral, contribute some money to get it on the agenda in your country, and then it's going to be like dominoes. Then one by one, countries fall, and then we privatize thoughts for mankind. And then the world gets better. We eliminate disease, and people will be living long. Basically, if you're on welfare and you don't try to find a job, and you don't try to educate yourself, or if you're on welfare, basically, if you're on welfare, you're lazy, you're not going to be eligible to live forever, basically, with technology. But if you're on disability, I'm going to try to find a job for you or create a job for you, as long as you're intellectually able to. But if you have a physical disability, not a fucking problem. I could create a job for you. But if you have a physical or a mental ability, then that's a different challenge, right? It's more or less, how could you entertain that person's biology and give them the best experience for their poor circumstances, right? Anyways, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Well, actually, I'll play the rest of this hand because it could be monumental, or it could be the end of my poker day. It's not an ideal situation, like, to call, because of there's a potential 4 of kind, full house, right? So I'm not going to call, because even if I hit the flush, I could lose to a full house, right? Or a higher flush. And I would have missed, so I saved 945 chips. But if you're new to poker, you would never really want to call when there's a paired board. You'd never really want to chase your flush draws. All the time, right? Sometimes they're not going to have the full house, but sometimes they do, right? So say 80% of the time, don't do it. Anyways, thanks for watching. Have a great day.